said, stick by me, you'll be your guiding hand. But don't ask me what I think of you, I might not give the answer that you want me to.
Howdy, I'm Joe, and this is my show, Joe's Rides. In these videos, myself and my glamorous assistant Caden will show you what we get up to in my workshop in town, repairing mostly Land Rovers, along with a few classic cars, hot rods, American cars, all sorts. We'll also do some videos from my workshops at home, where you will see some of my projects, more cars, bikes, hot rods, odds and sods, you name it. So if you like petrol, oil, dirt and beer, then tune in. If you're a bit woke, left wing, if you believe in climate change or you're vegan, then fuck off!
Howdy. Well, today we have a bit of a head scratcher in, and our head scratcher today is this TD5 Defender, which has been brought to me with an engine fault, not a mechanical fault, I think, but more an engine management fault, perhaps. So the problem the car has is if you drive it through the lower gears, through town, for instance, it is absolutely gutless. It has no low down power at all. But what is strange is once the turbo kicks in and it boosts up, the car drives really well with lots of power. So I get lots of these in with power related issues. And I do say to my customers, it can be really difficult with TD5s in that a lot of the different components can all cause the same fault. So you can go down this rocky road of replacing components until the fault goes away, which isn't the way I like to work. I'd rather try and spend some more time diagnosing the issue and then nailing it first time. But no two ways about it, we're going to have to go through a lot of different components checking before we get to the bottom of this one. Now, as I said, I've had loads of these in. I kind of know them really well and what produces these lack of power faults. But this one's different. I don't think I've had one in that has this fault, in that there's no low down power, but once the turbo's boosted, there is. So it's a little bit of a new one on me. So the first thing we did was we hooked it up to our diagnostic equipment, which in this case is called T4, which is exactly what Land Rover used back in the day. It's a time-consuming thing to get T4 up and running. You have to do a fair bit of typing on the laptop and enter information, etc., etc. But once you're in there and it's talking to the car, it's a very good tool. So we plugged it in and it came up with 11 fault codes, which I'll just try and get up on my phone now. And those fault codes are a inlet air temperature circuit fault, an ambient air temperature circuit fault, an ambient pressure circuit fault, manifold pressure circuit fault, airflow circuit fault, mill lamp drive open load, glow plug lamp drive open load, injector faults, pressure sensor inconsistent faults, and driver demand, along with a couple of others. So obviously the car hasn't got 11 faults. I'll be surprised if it has. And anyone that uses diagnostic equipment will tell you that you've got to take everything with a pinch of salt. So you can't just go and change 11 components there, because obviously that's not the case. So it is a useful tool. It does give you a clue, but in this case, it's not really helping me at all. Out of all of them, driver demand is mentioned. That relates to the throttle pedal on the car. It's a drive-by-wire system, and the throttle pedal has a potentiometer on it. I have had, but rarely, those fail on Defenders and Discovery TD5s, and they do cause the fault where the car has no power, basically because it just won't rev up. But this car does rev up. It doesn't rev up very fast and clean, and like I say, once it's boosted, all the power's there. So I'm going to bear that one in mind, but the rest of them I'm going to take with a pinch of salt for now. So I cleared all those codes out and took it for a run again, and came back only to plug it back in and find out that I only had one fault, which was what I was kind of hoping. But that related to the glow plug circuit. Now, we know that the glow plug circuit's going to have nothing to do with the lack of power. So I deleted that one and went for another drive and came back, and we had turbocharger stroke manifold pressure faults. So again, it could have something to do with it, but when the car does boost, it boosts well, and the engine pulls well. So if there was a manifold pressure or a turbo type fault, I don't think it would affect our low down power, which it is. So the way we're going to address this is we're going to start off with all the old school things to make sure we haven't got something silly going on. Fuel pumps can be troublesome on these. It sounds with my ear to be okay. That's not to say there is a problem, but I'm dismissing that for now. Turbo wastegates can seize up. I'm going to take this heat shield off and just make sure that it does move. But I have put a bar on there and it does move a bit. But I'm going to take this off, lubricate it, and make sure that does move correctly. Caden's also taken off this turbo hose and the corresponding one on the other side of the car. Now they are quite oily, and there's oil around the joins of the turbo hoses. Now these turbos and the turbos on the earlier TDIs all pass a little bit of oil. I guess you also get a bit of oil from the breather as well. So anyway, the consequences is that the intercooler, the inlet manifold, all the turbo hoses, etc., all have a bit of an oily mist in there. It's not a problem. It doesn't mean the turbo needs changing. It's just I just see it on these higher mileage engines. But what can be a giveaway if you have a split in the intercooler or a turbo hose is you'll see an oil mist, and all of these turbo hoses have an oil mist around them. So we took them off, and some of them were a little bit loose, or the clips were. But I was rather hoping to maybe find a split in one of the hoses, which isn't uncommon, particularly when the oil is circulating through them, because obviously it rots the rubber a little bit. But no. So the other thing, which can flag up lots of faults on the T4 diagnostic equipment, is the fact of the injector harness passing oil into the ECU, and this one is very slightly. Now we did do a video before on the replacement of the injector harness and the problems it causes by passing oil all the way from the engine through the loom and down into the ECU here. So you can have a look on some of the earlier Joe's Rides videos, and you can see us replacing that and talking more about it. So this one does have some evidence of some oil in the injector harness, so we're going to clean that plug up. We'll probably take the ECU out and clean that as well. Once we've done that, I'm also going to take the time to remove the manifold pressure sensor. As I just said, these engines pass a lot of oil around the intakes, and it won't be uncommon to take this manifold pressure sensor out and maybe find it's all covered in an oily residue and perhaps not doing its job properly. So we'll clean that plug up. We'll take this sensor out and give that a clean, and then we'll come back and let you know the results of that. Okay, so we're still not really any farther forward, apart from the fact we've eliminated a few things. So as I said, we found oil ingress in our red plug on the ECU, which we've cleaned out, and we've also taken the manifold pressure sensor out, which was dirty, and cleaned that. I'm still sort of thinking old school fault, so we've replaced the fuel filter. I did service this car last year, so I didn't think for a minute the fuel filter would be blocked, but you know what, you could spend an awful lot of time running around in circles and find it's just a simple fault like that. So they're fairly inexpensive, and I put a fuel filter on. I've now hooked it back up to T4 Diagnostics, and it's still talking to me really about turbocharger faults. So up here we've got turbo wastegate modulator connector, various short circuits, short circuit to turbo wastegate modulator valve, and then if I go on to the next page, we have talk of again of the wastegate modulator, turbocharger manifold pipe split, turbocharger wastegate stuck open. Now we've checked our turbo pipes. I'm still not convinced by the whole turbo thing at all, because as I said, when the car goes up the road and it does eventually boost, it boosts fine, and doesn't seem to be any loss of pressure. But I think we will have a bit of a better look at the turbo wastegate. Make sure that it's not seized in any way, and we'll have a look at the actuator and go from there. So I'm not particularly going with my gut instincts. I'm more going with what T4 Diagnostic computer is telling me. We've got a turbo related problem, but I'm still not really buying it. It seems more to me like perhaps we're lacking fuel, but nonetheless we have to check these things. So there's a lot of talk on the diagnostic machine about the turbo wastegate actuator, and I'm just going to test that old school way. I'm going to get compressed air and put compressed air into the actuator. If Caden, if you can come here and film, yeah, you can see that I'm proving that the wastegate actuator is working, and it's all free. Well, I've just come back from a road test with this Defender that's been giving us some trouble, and I'm glad to report that it's now fixed. But it's certainly been a journey along the way. I had gone barking up the wrong tree a little bit here and there, but that's how this job goes sometimes. So the problem with the car ended up being the airflow meter. It's always something simple at the end, but that's what it was. So the airflow meter has just been replaced, and like I say, I've given it a road test and all is well. So I'll perhaps go back inside the workshop and tell you a little bit about how we come to this. Okay, so the story, painful story with the diagnosing and fixing the TD5 110. So having plugged it into T4 Diagnostics, and which gave me a magnitude of fault codes, all of which I took with a pinch of salt, we started looking around all the old school things to make sure there was nothing silly going on, and I couldn't really find anything untoward. What I decided to do was to have a look at the fuel pump on the car. We get a lot of TD5 Defenders and Discoveries in with fuel pump failure, so I keep the pumps on the shelf. It's not an uncommon problem. Now, what normally happens when I get a TD5 with a fuel pump failure is either they are very, very low on power all across the board, or they just don't go at all. Another giveaway is when they're very, very quiet, they can be a problem. When they're very noisy, they can be a problem. And when they have a healthy buzz in between those two noises to a trained ear, that's when they're okay. This one was quite quiet, but I wasn't sure this was producing this problem that we're having with this car, which I haven't had before, which was this low down power problem. It wasn't throughout the rev range. Once the revs eventually picked up and the turbo spooled, the car would set off like a scalded cat, but just driving it around the town, absolutely gutless, which was a new one on me. So was in the dark with this one a little bit. So I decided that what we'd do is we'd take a pump off a shelf, take this pump out of the car, temporarily fit the fuel lines and the electrical connections, drop it in there and give it a whiz around the block and see if it cured the problem. This is where it all went wrong. So we went to disconnect the 4 fuel lines that connect into the top of the pump there, and one of the connections, which are like this, a push-fit connection, was snapped in half. It had been siliconed and glued together. I have no idea how it was working, how it stayed in one piece, because the minute we just even looked at it, it just dropped in half. Now, you can't buy these ends. I didn't have any of these ends. So all of a sudden, I'm phoning the customer and saying, look, we've got a broken fuel pipe here. I'm going to have to replace that, but I don't think it's the problem with the running of the car. So that was another expense which maybe was or wasn't needed. The top of the pump has got a hole in it. Where the pump sits in the fuel tank itself, there was a big puddle of diesel, so that must have been leaking diesel for a long time. And on the bottom of the pump, it's all covered in this black gunge, which I believe comes from where the fuel injectors, the copper washers on the bottom of the fuel injectors leak, which we covered in a different video, and passes this effectively carbon, which is pretty much death for your fuel pump. So everything about this fuel pump and the fuel pipe, we had no choice in. So the guy was fine, yeah, changed the pump, changed the fuel line. Fuel line was very expensive, about 90 quid for a bit of plastic pipe. When we're changing the fuel line with the broken end, we discovered this fuel line. This fuel line had been cut or damaged and has been joined up with Jubilee clips in the past. All of the joints were sweaty and leaking. So I said to him, look, we just found another fuel pipe. Again, I don't think this is the problem with the car, but it's crazy for us to put it back on. So it transpired that the car had 3 of the 4 fuel pipes replaced at great expense, actually, and a fuel pump, I beg your pardon. And we took it on a road test, and the fault was still the same, which I kind of guessed was going to be the outcome of that. So after much head scratching and checking of a lot of different components, the throttle pedal potentiometer, sensors, we took the pressure sensor out of the inlet manifold, cleaned that made no difference. I decided to check the airflow meter, mass airflow meter, and this proved to be faulty. Now, this wasn't logged as a fault on the T4 diagnostics, which is a little bit strange. So I checked this yesterday and found it to be faulty. But prior to that, what I had done was I disconnected it and tried driving the car up the road. And normally if you disconnect one of these on a TD5, the ECU will kind of go into a default mode, and it will compensate for that not working, and the car will drive to a degree fairly normally. So I disconnected it and took it up the road, and it made no difference. The fault was still there. I even took another one of these off another car we was servicing just the other day, and tried it with a different one off a different car, which was running fine, and the fault was still there. It was only yesterday I decided I'd come back to this and thought I'd actually test it properly with a multimeter, which I did, and it proved to be faulty. So you've got 3 connections on your MAF sensor. From memory, the one on the right is a 12-volt supply. The 12-volt supply heats a very thin piece of wire within the meter, which then transfers that into information back to the ECU to tell the ECU how much air is actually being sucked into your car effectively. The left-hand outer terminal is the earth for the unit, the ground for the unit, and the middle connection is the one that takes the signal back from the mass airflow meter back to the ECU. And that should be given a signal when the car is running of somewhere between 0 and 5 volts, depending on the load on the engine. And when I tested this, we had a 12-volt supply on the outer terminal there. Our earth was good, but when the engine was running, we had no reading at all from this centre pin. So that pretty much tells me straight away that the airflow meter was faulty. So we put another one on this morning, and bloody hell, it's all okay. So that was a bit of a journey. Fortunately, the customer's okay with the way we've gone around it. Obviously, some of these items that we've changed, we're going to bite him in the arse at a later date. So although it's been difficult for me and the customer's wallet, I'm glad to say that we've got there now. That's the way these jobs go sometimes. The other thing I could have a little chat with you about is what's in this box. And what is in this box is what we call a chestnut. And I thought it'd be quite apt to have a chat about one of those, as we're only a few days away from Christmas here now. I'm sure a lot of you have eaten chestnuts in the past, particularly this time of year at Christmas, but maybe not so many of you know where they actually come from. Now, you might be thinking they come from our native chestnut trees, but that's not the case actually. They are actually the produce of Guatemala. And in Guatemala, the locals there, the local fishermen, when it comes up to the Christmas months in Guatemala, they pull ashore some of these huge sea lions that they have basking on the rocks there. The sea lions don't mind this, and on the chests of these big sea lions are these chestnuts. Now, a lot of people think they're nuts. They're not. They're actually barnacles that grow on the chests of these sea lions. And the local fishermen, they take a blunt knife and they scrape these chestnuts off of the sea lions and then bag them up and send them to us over here in Britain. So there's all us thinking they're off a local chestnut tree. It's far from the case. They're actually barnacles, chestnuts off of sea lions. So there you go. Fuck, how awful. Well, so the video you just watched about the diagnostics and the repair on the TD5 Defender is the last one before Christmas. We're only 2 days away from Christmas now. Finished at work, locked the workshop up, and we're back here at the workshops at home. But I'm away off on holiday to Lapland, and I'm going to leave Caden in charge of pushing the Supervan 3 forward to get it into primer. So I need to get those back doors, finish repairing those back doors, get them hung, get the van masked up, and a bit more preparation and get it in primer. I didn't really want to leave him on his own, but he said he's got a helper to help him do this. I don't know who it is. I just hope they're responsible and him and Caden won't get up to mischief. So hopefully I'll come back from Lapland after Christmas and the van will be all in primer and everything would have gone smoothly. So until then, Merry Christmas, everyone. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! Santa Claus here! Ho, 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 ho! I've come here to help Caden get on with Joe's van. Ho, 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 ho! I hope you've all been good boys and girls. I might not come down your chimney, but I might come on your tits. Ho, 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 ho! Ho, 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 ho! Well, there we got the doors fitted for Joe. He will be pleased, won't he? Ho, 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 ho!
Santa, I'm going to the shop for lunch. Do you want anything?
Ho, 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 ho! I'll have a mince pie, please, Caden. Ho, ho, ho!
When I'm gone, get on with the masking and don't mess around.
Oh, okay, Caden.
Hi, Santa. Santa, what the hell are you doing? Joe is not going to be happy at this when he gets back. Alright, cracking on with the masking. Santa's supposed to be helping me, but I don't know where he's got.
Oh, sorry, Caden. I was just having a bit of a break. Ho, 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 ho. Now then, I hope all you ladies are looking forward to Christmas, because on Christmas Eve, when you're all asleep, I'm going to come into your bedroom and empty my sack all over your bed. Ho, 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 ho.
Oh, hello, Caden.
Hello, Joe. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
You still away?
Yes, still in Lapland.
What's it like?
What's it like? Shit. Yeah, it's just all trees and snow.
You been out at all?
Went out on a sleigh ride today to Santa's grotto. He wasn't there though. They reckon he's gone to England for some reason. I think he needs to get back a bit pronto. It's getting near Christmas. He's got a lot of presents to wrap, reindeer to feed, elves to fiddle with. Yeah, how are you getting on with the van?
Good, thanks.
Alright, is your mate there helping you?
Yeah.
Good. You're not all messing around, are you?
Oh, no.
Alright, great. Okay, I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Ho, ho, ho. Well, look at this. Joe's brought me a Christmas present. How kind. Let's have a look what's in here. Not very big, tight bastard. Oh,
Van's all in primer. Looks really good. Joe's going to be very pleased when he comes back to see how far me and Santa's come. And I've got to say, the back doors look really good on it.
ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!